Today, we have the privilege of sharing an interview with Jim Derry, the CEO of Field. He exemplifies what it means to lead with a strong corporate culture. Not everyone is fortunate enough to work under a leader like him, but when you do, it truly makes a difference. You see, Jim embodies the company culture, the values, and he strategically implemented key elements that inspire innovation and foster meaningful connection amongst employees. You see, during my conversation with Mr. Derry, he shared his insights on why culture is the cornerstone of his company's success. His perspective is eye-opening, and it underscores the importance of prioritizing individual growth alongside business objectives. Who would have thought? I'm Dr. Katie Thomas, the founder of Bette Work Experience Incorporated, where I focus on supporting the career advancement of Millennials and Gen Z corporate professionals, those people who are inspired by their personal mission to create a positive impact on the world through their work. And my mission is to create a positive impact in people's lives because, in my experience, that is far more rewarding than just fixing a broken corporation. We all got to look out for ourselves, and I'm here to teach you how to do that. I have seen firsthand how companies often put KPIs and shareholder interests above individual development. I just shared an example of that last week. It's very frustrating. And so that's why I created the Promotion Accelerator. It's a personalized program designed to help you navigate corporate politics, amplify your contributions, and secure that next promotion, taking your development into your own hands. Just as we dive into this enlightening conversation with Jim Derry, I want us to explore together how a strong corporate culture can unlock not only company success, but also individual fulfillment. So if you're lucky enough to work at a corporate culture, at a company with a corporate culture such as this, good on you. I hope you're maximizing all the benefits of possibilities for your advancement in that organization. But those of you who are not as lucky to work in a corporation that prioritizes the culture, there's hopefully some tips in here that will help you identify ways that you can move forward. So I want to take this opportunity to invite in our special guest for today. This is Jim Derry. He is the CEO of Field. And Field Fastener is a global company that provides supply chain solutions and inventory management for fasteners and other items. So welcome to the show, Jim.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Katie, for having me. It's an honor to be a part of the show.
So jumping right in, can you share a bit about your background and what inspired you to start or join Field? I know there's a great story there.
Oh gosh, where do you start? I'm so old. I have to really think about back in the day. So I was born in Rockford, Illinois. I was the sixth, seven kids from obviously a large family, and from a very early on, I was always cutting the neighbor's grass or shoveling snow. Or all seven kids that are in our family worked at the same grocery store. I was always working, kind of a hustler a little bit, partly because I knew I was going to have to pay for my own college. So I didn't play sports in high school because I had to, have a job and pay for college. So then I got a mechanical engineering degree. I went to work for a great company as a sales guy. But really, from the beginning, I kind of always thought I would work for myself somewhere along. It was a great company, Harris Corporation, on a Fortune 200, but I knew I wasn't going to retire and get a gold watch at some point in time from the company. So somewhere in the late 80s, so I was 27, one of my older brothers comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I got this idea." And he was a fastener guy. He worked in the fastener industry. And we were up at another brother's cabin in Wisconsin and just talking. So long story short, he says, it's a stumpy little company, 12 people, $800,000 a year in revenue. We'll go together and buy it. You come back to Rockford to run it, and he would be an investor. Okay. And I wasn't smart enough to realize it was kind of a crazy idea, but so we took every penny we had in savings, moved back to Rockford. I took a 50% cut in pay because I really had a nice job at this big company now as a sales leader, and we just we just threw it all on the table and said, let's do it. So at 29, we moved back. We had our oldest son. My wife was pregnant with her second child. And the reality is she was a nurse, and I knew that she could support her family if this thing didn't work. And I knew I could get another job, but it was really more of a, like, why not? We did all the financial planning, and like the upside could be really cool. And the downside, we figured, yeah, it wouldn't be that bad. It would just be literally every penny we've ever saved we'd lose it, but we'd still be okay. So it was more of a bet on myself and my brother and I, and like, now's the time to take a risk, right? Because we're relatively young. So what the hell?
What was the initial vision for Field, and how has it evolved over time?
So the initial vision, seriously, I don't think I could do this justice, but I mean, think about the dumpiest building you can imagine, and it's just full of boxes kind of strewn everywhere inside. I mean, there
Oh,
was no computer system. I mean, we could show you pictures. It was literally a dump, but it was profitable. I think that was the thing. And it had a good reputation in the community, so the vision was take this dump and kind of dress up a little bit, and then sell, like go proactively sell. And I was a sales guy, so I knew I could sell. And so my goal was to be the sales guy. My brother was kind of the technical guy behind it, and he figured out there was a better way to fasten and join things together. So ultimately, we just went out and we kind of put some systems in place in the company, kind of cleaned up a little bit, and then just went out calling customers and just sold stuff, sold stuff, sold stuff. So the goal, initially when we put the financial projections together, we thought maybe we could get to $5 million a year in revenue, and like that would be like, wow, we've really, we made it somehow. We succeeded. Um, so that number kind of came and went, and then the business evolved and it got more sophisticated. We started doing these vendor managed inventory systems, and we hired some more technical people that were like providing engineering services to customers, and they were getting bigger orders and bigger, and we're getting like flagship companies like Honeywell. There's a company in town, Woodward Governor. They made aerospace components. So they were a customer of ours now. So we're kind of getting some traction. And then about 5 years into, we moved into actually the building we're in today. And then that kind of helped. And then so really it was just a whole bunch of, and as we look back, it was a constant commitment to getting a little bit better, continuous improvement, right? We're going to keep getting the business better. We're going to do a better job taking care of customers. We're going to keep adding better people, and then the thing ended up, exceeding our wildest expectations. So it's been so much fun. I mean, just the ride we've been on has just been amazing.
so you mentioned that the original vision was to kind of grow the business and sell it. What was that change? Obviously that was, a few decades ago now. And did you fall in love with running a company, or what was the change in leadership
Yeah,
vision
I
there?
think, Dr. Katie, that's a great question, because we were doing this. We From the beginning we said, when we can take this business and sell it and have the lifestyle that we want to enjoy for the rest of our life, like why would we keep doing it? I mean, it's kind of like, well, why wouldn't you just sell it and be done? But there's no question that it became something that we could never have imagined. And this happens through a series of these, I would say, these challenges. And the most important of these challenges, that it was at our 20-year anniversary, we were about $20 million a year in revenue, and we took the whole company to Las Vegas to celebrate this 20-year milestone.
Wow.
And Bill, my brother, said, you know what? So we had the whole company there, and he made this proclamation. He said, you know what? For 20 years, we've grown at 20% a year. And when we do that for the next 9 years, we'll be $100 million company. I'm like, what are you talking about? Seriously,
Wow.
what, Bill, you've been in Vegas for 6 hours. What have you been doing to make this? So I made some comment about, like, well, if we get to 100 million, we'll have a real party on a beach or an island somewhere. Well, the reality is we went back and then built a plan to go from 20 million to $100 million in revenue. And the only reason the only reason that ever happened is because Bill challenged us to go and do it, and we just figured it out, right? We built a plan, and we did, we just did what we had to do to go from point A to point B. And then we had to have a much bigger party to take 250 people to Cancun, Mexico, and celebrate getting to this $100 million mark. But so the point is, and it's a long story, but in this process somewhere between 20 and 100 million, it became clear that this business, there was something special about this company. We had put this enormous focus on organizational culture. We had now had some, his oldest son had joined the company. We had then ultimately crafted this kind of the next strategic plan that was all focused around improving lives. It wasn't about getting bigger. It was trying to make a difference. Created a mission statement that's to have everyone who interact with us love us. So it became more of a business and more of a, like, the legacy. Like, what do we want this business to be, and how do we make the world a better place by, we sell nuts and bolts and screws, but along the way, can we make lives better for our customers, our team members, their families, and the community that we operate in? So that's when it became like, we're not going to sell this thing. And there was a point in time where, we could have sold it for a fair amount of money. But as we pondered this and started thinking about, well, why, if we want to make a difference, we could make a bigger difference if the business stays in our family, and we can make a difference kind of every year. We put money into making a difference every year versus selling the business and having some kind of an event, a liquidity event. So well, now there's some money. So we figured our impact would be significantly greater over generations worth of our family if we keep it in the family, and we have this commitment to improving lives. Is kind of what we stand for.
I just love that, and it's such an inspiration to hear when a CEO talks about the importance of the corporate culture, because even just pulling up your website, you can see on your careers page, join the family business, that team members, suppliers, customers, and the community love. I mean, you really pride yourself on your reputation and how it feels to interact with this company, and I think that makes a big difference. You have your mission and your core values front and center. And one thing that really stood out to me as an organizational psychologist was that on your careers page, you have a training and benefits section. Most companies have, but the training and development is first, right? And not just the benefits. What does the employee get, which are quite extensive, but the type of development and training and the way that it's described on your website, that to me stands out. So my next question for you, Jim, is how would you describe the culture at Field? And I know the core values are listed here, but in your words, how would you describe that culture? What does that look like? What does it feel like on a day-to-day?
Well, before I get that, the thing that is different today than it was really a bunch of years ago is it's super intentional. Like, for a long time, we never talked about it. We never used the word culture. I mean, we just kind of did what we did. But somewhere along the line, 15, 20 years ago, we started saying, there's something unique. So we got really intentional. So we look for people, we look for behaviors, we look for core values of people that fit our culture and can enhance our culture. So the words that kind of come to mind when I think about our culture is empowerment. So you can't grow at like 20% a year the way we have for 30 some years and micromanage. You gotta push decisions to people that are closer to the action. We do believe in the constant teamwork and family. That's not fluff. That's on the website. I mean, this is a family business. We have several family members in it, but we treat each other like family. And the culture is super transparent. I mean, we share everything. We share the real financial statements with the organization on a quarterly basis. Very few privately owned companies do that. But the logic is we have this crystal clear strategic plan. Here's where we're going. And everybody understands the plan. They know how they can impact that. And then they have all the same data that the leaders look at, because we share our financial performance. So everybody knows where we're going and how we're doing. So generally speaking, if everyone has the same goal in mind and they're using the same data to kind of make decisions, we're like to make the same decision because we're using the same criteria to make the decision. So those are the key kind of couple of words that kind of describe our culture. But the way that we implement it is, it's on the website somewhere. We call the fundamentals. The field,
Yeah.
the field fundamentals, or the field fundamentals, are 30 behaviors. They're trainable, teachable, coachable, actionable behaviors that are way more specific than core values. And when people join the organization, we kind of can talk about with real world examples of what it means to think like an owner, to find a way, to think team first, right? So these very specific behaviors are we're able to articulate exactly what they are. And there's this whole series of rituals that we repeat these 30 behaviors on an ongoing basis. We do one a week, and then we go to the next one and the next one, and then we get to the end, we start over, we keep doing that. So there's lots of ways that these behaviors kind of become front and center and top of mind, so that we're constantly reinforcing it. So the beauty of it is the behaviors that we're reinforcing in Rockford, Illinois, in Tyler, Texas, in Taiwan, in Monterrey, Mexico, it's all the same stuff. It's the same
Wow.
exact series of these teachable, coachable, trainable behaviors. So our culture, it's still going to be different, right? Our culture in the US and Mexico and Taiwan, they're going to be different for sure. But they're going to be consistent because we're trying to embrace the same behaviors. And I think that we really focus on the intentionality of these behaviors, because what the behaviors are actually what makes the culture. It isn't what
Right.
we say. It's not what's in a 3-ring notebook. Or in the website. It's like the behaviors are what really, no kidding, happens.
So give me an example of what's the behavior this week?
This week is ask questions.
Ask questions. Okay. So what's a question that might come up this week? Somebody might ask you, or just promoting that behavior amongst the
So
day-to-day.
So this behavior is really trying to get people to go into situations prepared to ask questions, right? Because we really talk about, this is really how you learn. And you learn by asking thoughtful, deep, kind of probing questions. So, and this is a great example of a fundamental that doesn't naturally come. It doesn't come naturally to some people, but it's super learnable, right? Because
Right.
regularly, you'll meet somebody brand new. It's like, well, what questions do you have for me? Like, oh, I don't know. But if you say, hey, in 10 minutes, you're going to go have a conversation with Dr. Katie, think of a couple of questions you could ask her. You're like, well, you could come up with a couple of them or a bunch of them, right? So it's the whole idea of going into situations, being prepared to ask thoughtful questions, depending on the context of the meeting. And it's really, we talk about being curious, thoughtful, and it's a great way to learn and show that you're interested in something.
How do you take your vision for the company and bring that into reality for your employees at all levels, and really establishing alignment between your vision and the day-to-day goals of your staff, from executive leadership to entry-level positions?
This unmistakably clear strategic plan. So this is a 10-year plan, and then every year we say, well, this is the operating plan that kind of moves us forward in each of these elements of the strategic plan. And we share what that is at the beginning of the year, and then we share our performance against how we did that against last year. We do kind of a mid-year checkup, and then we do the same thing. So there's this whole ritual saying, here's our strategic plan, and then here's what we're going to do this year to kind of move towards that strategic plan. So, and we're always talking about how we're doing against that plan. And the leaders' jobs are responsible to make sure that their team understands how they fit into each of the elements of our strategic plan. So it's pretty simple, but it really works. And again, if we were to ask people in the organization, tell me about their strategic plan, they could give you some sense of what the plan is, why it's important, and most importantly, how they can impact and their role in kind of implementing this plan.
So within a 340-ish size company, what strategies have you implemented to foster unity within that team? outside of what you've already done? Because I know a
Yeah,
lot of development can happen, a lot of, excuse me, development strategies can enable and foster unity, but there
yeah,
are other aspects as well that foster
yeah.
unity. And I'm curious what if there's
Yeah,
any activities or
yeah,
initiatives.
yeah. There's actually tons of it. So I think that some of the most important is this connectivity around the plan, like the strategic plan. That's one. But there's also um, a bunch of like volunteer opportunities. So that's where this kind of this focus around improving lives. So and each one of our, we call them centers of excellence, right? So these are our facilities that have people and stuff. Everyone has the leaders there all have a budget, and they can decide kind of what nonprofit organizations that they want to support, right? So we're big in the United Way. We've been doing that for a long time. Habitat for Humanity. So like Habitat's a great example. So we've done it a couple times now where the company would donate the money to build a Habitat house, and then we give everybody a week of work paid to volunteer to nonprofit. So
Wow.
people can go and they can go to work for for Habitat, and ultimately we end up building a big chunk of a house as a group. So now there's people from the warehouse and the office and sales and accounting that they're volunteering together to
Wow.
build a house, so that we end up leveraging the financial resources of the company with a financial donation and some time, but then that connectivity, so people are working together on volunteer projects. That's one way, and really quite powerful, because I don't know, I'm not a big fan of yard work, but when I'm doing it for somebody else's yard, it's way more fun. So it's, and doing it with people that you don't necessarily see, and so those kinds of things. But the other thing that has really built unity is, as we're growing, there's lots of like large scale projects. So we bought a company in Columbus, Ohio a year and a half ago. Well, there's a bunch of people that need to go to Columbus to kind of teach the people in Columbus how our systems work. So now there's a handful of trainers. So they're going to Columbus together. So they're working together to teach some folks in Columbus how our systems work. So those folks now, they're cross functional. So they're working on this project. So at the end of that, they're like, man, there's a whole bunch of connected people because they work on the project. And then we have these large, like when a new customer gets implemented, there's a whole bunch of people that would be involved in like the implementation of a new customer. So again, that's typically involves a long weekend, where this last one, there was 20 people who went down to this new company, and we had to set up all the stuff, racks and bins. And so now there's 20 people that did this thing together, and there's connections around that. So there's large scale projects that we work on, cross functional projects that create some kind of teams, and then some of the volunteer opportunities that does, but then also some of the training and development kind of creates connectedness, because a lot of this training is virtual, and people from different ones of our centers of excellence participate in those things kind of collectively. So there's lots and lots of ways we try to get people to kind of feel connected to each other.
What about kind of cross functionally? So, how would somebody in one part of the business know or be able to be recognized for their contributions on initiatives? Like, how do you sponsor sort of or facilitate that recognition across the organization? Because
Yeah, we
that's a
have
big thing with creating unity, right? Is being
yeah,
inspired by the
yeah,
accomplishments of others. So, how do you
yeah.
facilitate that at Field?
Yeah, there's a system we call We Rock. So there's a little icon on your desktop, and it's like, there was this thing. So I said, I went in, you and I were working on a project. So I go in, I click on, and I want to recognize Dr. Katie because she did this cool thing for this customer, and it was she delivered legendary service. So then you can reference some of the field fundamentals: delivered legendary service, she found a
Oh,
way, appreciate your help, Dr. Katie. So that gets submitted, and we get dozens of those every week, and 100 of those in the course of a month. So then at the end of the month, we share, or actually every week, we kind of share them with everybody so people see them. And at the end of the month, we draw people so that if they were recognized, then you can get a t-shirt or $100 or something like that. So there's ways to kind of add a boy, add a girl, thanks for your help kind of stuff, and going above and beyond. So it recognizes people, but it also kind of highlights the field fundamentals as well.
Yeah, and it definitely brings people closer together
Yeah,
to feel, seen
yeah,
and
yeah.
acknowledged. That's wonderful.
I mean, it feels good, right? When someone says, "Hey, it's sometimes like, oh, my car wouldn't start, so Johnny in the warehouse, he jumped my car, or changed my
Oh,
tire,
nice.
or
Nice.
whatever. I needed something, and I thought I was having a bad day, and Sandy brought me a cup of coffee from Starbucks because she knows I like the pumpkin spice lattes or something. It could be stuff like that, but it's just a way for people to say, "Thank you, I appreciate you."
I love that. That's great. Yeah. And then, so, it's all rainbows and sunshine, but what about conflict, right? Because we're human beings, so we're
Yeah.
not always going to agree. And I feel like, you're leading a corporate powerhouse such as Field, you're gonna have to have included diverse perspectives because you don't get
Yeah.
where you are today if you
Yeah.
haven't been able to collaborate across different ways of thinking because you
Yeah.
have to have diverse thinking in order
Yeah.
to have innovation, and innovation has gotten you to where you are in a combination of other things. So what about conflict and disagreement? How do you deal with conflict within your corporate culture and disagreements to maintain a cohesive environment?
Yeah, the thing that we really try to focus on is to have people deal directly with the people that they're having some challenges with, as opposed to saying to their coworker, like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe Sandy said this or Bobby did that?" And we kind of say, "Look at if that's just unacceptable." So if you like participate in that, just hearing that and just kind of listen, they're going to say that's like we don't want that either, right? So if someone's coming to you complaining about somebody, and say, "You know what? Hey, talk to Sandy about this." So we try to encourage people to deal with it because if they deal directly with the person they're having an issue with, or at least their supervisor, then we get out of gossip and kind of that negative talk. So that's the first thing we do. The other is that, again, there's some fundamentals that as you might imagine, like we talk about
Absolutely.
practice, blameless problem solving. So it's like we try to encourage people to go in and say, okay, there's an issue, there's a challenge, something bad happened. So let's try to look at the system that caused this or the system that created this conflict, as opposed to what the reality is. There's a lot of people that like to come into work, do their job and leave, and that's it. And they don't work here because they don't want to work as a team. They don't want to think about better ways. They don't want to collaborate. They don't want to find a way. They don't want to drive innovation. They just kind of want to do what they always do every day. So our culture is great for people that want to be part of a rapidly growing, opportunistic company that has empowerment, but it isn't for everybody. A lot of people may say they want that, but a lot of times they just kind of like a little spot, a little kind of, let me just do my little thing, and I'll be done, and I'll be done at the end of the day. So part of it is, we have to find people that fit our culture, and it isn't for everybody.
I think that if we all leaned into our strengths more like you, Jim, I think the world would be a work experience would be a lot better for a lot of people. And particularly working in a culture that is so collaborative and innovative, like you said, it's not a great fit for all kinds of employees. You have to be interested, you have to be leaning in, and you have to be
Yeah,
curious. And I
yeah,
don't think everyone's built that way. And I don't think everybody's had a lot of professional experiences where they feel safe being that way. I think a lot of workplaces today, they don't allow employees to be vulnerable. They don't allow employees to bring their whole selves to work. So if maybe they've spoken up in the past and they've been disciplined. So there's a lot of different types of employees out there and different types of work environments. So definitely those HR professionals that you got on staff are choosing the right folks to get you where you want to go.
and that's what's so important, though. And I think we had a concern for a while when in this journey between 20 and 100 million. We thought, if we get to 100 million and screw up our culture, then we will have failed. But we know now, based on this ongoing journey, that if we continue to find the people that fit our culture, and we continue providing the right training and coaching and development opportunities, our culture, we're confident our culture gets better going forward, because when we start with the right raw material, right people, and then keep doing things as we get bigger, we just have, they just provide some scale that you can't necessarily, there's additional benefits and training and opportunities you can't necessarily get until you get bigger. So we're confident that our culture can get better every year as we get bigger if we keep doing the right things.
Yeah, and that can happen actually to a lot of startups that, they're a startup company, they're a small group of founders, and then maybe they get some great seed investing, and then boom, they're $100 million investment, and they're trying to grow their company, and they have no idea what's happening to their corporate culture. So I like that slow and steady build on top of greatness, step by step, to building that unity at Field. That's wonderful. Very cool. How do you balance maintaining a positive company culture with the drive for increased profits? So is there ever a conflict between those two? I know you said that strategic plan, it's posted all around. What does that involve from a day-to-day there?
Yeah, they're not at odds. I mean, our culture contributes an enormous amount to our profitability. I mean, it's, taking care of, why taking care of your people is so important, because if you take care of your people and they feel like you got their back, there's a much higher likelihood they're going to take care of our customers. And that's what happens. We take care of our people. We try to provide them great benefits. We try to create the right work environment. We work hard. We have fun. It's flexible. We try to give people, whatever, we deal with whatever issues they got and let them, have a life outside of work and balance. But when we do that, they work like crazy to take care of our customers. And if they take care of our customers, then we make money, right? Because generally speaking, our customers don't leave. I mean, the amount of large good customers that have left in the last 30 years is on one hand. And so as we grow the business, we tend to keep the current customers. So this connection between culture and profitability, it is a hard line. I mean, the better job we do taking care of our people, the better job they do taking care of our customers. And happy customers means you're doing it right, you're making some money.
Boom. And that's how you create a corporate powerhouse.
That's it. Yeah. The other thing I never anticipated in this journey about creating these fundamentals. Shortly after we did this, we were involved in the largest sales opportunity we've been involved in, and I was the lead sales guy in this thing. And once we created the fundamentals, we started talking about culture at the very front end of the sales process. And I never would have thought, this thought never came into my mind when we were thinking about this. But the reality is, this very large company, they made rail cars, and they had like 5 factories around South and in Mexico. And they wanted one supplier to do all 5 of these. And we had one of the factories at that time. Anyways, long story short, when we started to talk about how we teach, coach, and train our culture, and how our culture will be consistent in each of the factories that we're going to support because the people are getting trained in this stuff, that ended up being a really important part of their decision, because like none of our competitors were talking about how our culture would assure this customer that they were going to get great service because we taught it. And we had a system that would ensure that their culture would be consistent throughout these different 5 factories all over the south part of the United States. So it was actually, the culture was a part of getting business. So that was not something I initially anticipated. But since that time, we started talking about culture at the very beginning of the sales process.
And a lot of what you were just saying speaks to your unique qualities as a leader. And I would love to hear your perspective on what you believe the key qualities are of a successful leader to build and foster that strong company culture. And toot your own horn here, what makes you such a heart-centered CEO?
Just the way I was raised, I guess. I mean, if I was going to describe my leadership style, it's a servant leadership. Come in like, how can I help make life easier and better for our people, right? But I think it's important to understand kind of this is my opinion now, what's your kind of default leadership style? What do you do naturally, right? So you kind of alluded earlier, you got to know what your strengths are and kind of what your default is, right? And I'm a servant leader by kind of, that's just my nature. But I also think that there's a lot of times as a leader, you got to have that your default style just doesn't work. I mean, there's times where Where you're out in the front saying, we're going this way, we're charging this hill, this is what we got to do. When I was starting to roll out the strategic plan, I mean, it was fire up, passion, let's do this, we got this, we can make this happen. So being kind of the out front rah-rah cheerleader. There's times you got to do that. And there's times where, you got to be shoulder to shoulder, like, hey, we're doing the work today, right now, right? We're on site at a customer doing an implementation. So I'm leading right from the middle. We're just doing it together. And there's times where you got to lean from the back, right? Saying, go this way, go that way. I got your back. You guys take the lead. I'm gonna hang back. So I think it's important to just recognize there's not one leadership style that works. It's got to be situational. Generally speaking, I'm kind of pretty laid back, but there's times where when people see me get like mad, there's time, and that never to happen that happens by a decision. If I got to make a point and people see me fired up, get red in the face, maybe pound they know that I'm upset. That doesn't happen often, but when I want to make a point, it's nice to have like, okay, now's the time to let people know that this is really important, and they're going to see a side of me they don't normally see. But that comes out occasionally. My point in this rambling is that there's lots of different kinds of leadership stuff, and I think the most effective leaders, they know who they are naturally, and they can go to these other kinds of leaders as it's needed, as it's required, right? But there's time to be a coach, and there's time to be a mentor, and there's time to kick somebody in the ass and say, hey, listen, that's unacceptable. You can do better. So I think it's just being able to
read the room, certainly an advanced skill.
Yeah, that's people a lot of times say, what would you do different than what you know now? I'd say I'd studying emotional intelligence a long time ago, because they didn't invent that when I was a early on leader. But that is a skill that I think it'd be hard to be really good at being a leader if you don't have at least some of it innately. But the more effective you can be at reading the kind of the how each person is doing, like right now, where are they at emotionally right now? Because if they're not in a good spot emotionally, you're probably not going to ever connect with them and figure out what the real issues are unless you understand the emotional kind of positioning of the people you're interacting with.
Yeah, and then at a more advanced level of emotional intelligence is self-regulation.
Yeah.
Right, and being able to say, I'm pissed right now, but I'm going to portray that I'm calm and cool and
yeah, that's probably not my greatest strength, but yeah.
Maybe that's we can put a pin in that one for everyone's developing every day, right, Jim?
Well, that's emotional. The one thing I'm working on, just personally as a leader and as a human being, is trying to get better at that. I mean, it isn't something we say that comes by naturally. I mean, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I'm, that emotional stuff is just not something, and I'm a guy, so I got a couple things going against me, but I am working on it, and I do think, I know it's a learned skill.
How do you see Field's culture evolving as you look ahead?
Dr. K, that's a great question, and we generally, how I view this, the future is, I would say, we are incredibly proud of what we've accomplished to this point. I mean, it's beyond, we can never have imagined, but I know our best days are yet to come. And I say that with a fair amount of conviction, because the momentum and energy around what we've created is going to way exceed whatever Bill and I could do. I mean, candidly, the people that are running this business are way smarter than Bill and I are. They just are, and they're better at what they do. And the people that follow them will be smarter than they are, right? And because we keep learning. Part of that is our commitment to keeping the business in the family. So part of, our current president is my nephew. So this commitment to the family's commitment to the business, and the business commitment to the people, and our commitment to this whole idea of improving lives. I doubt that our strategic plan, at least while I'm around, I don't think it's going to change, because the people are really committed to this improving lives. And my point in all that is that if that's at the core of what we're doing, our culture will keep getting better. Because as we get bigger, we can do things that we couldn't do before, because we'll keep looking for ways to make the culture better. I think the reason is, most people, when they think about their strategic plan, most companies, there's not a section for culture. It's not there's revenue and innovation and quality. But culture is, well, arguably the most important part of our strategic plan. So we're
Absolutely.
always addressing, like, what are we going to do next year for culture? How are we going to make our culture better next year? And it isn't just, more benefits and stuff, but it's, things like this life coach, additional training. People thrive on that stuff. They love that stuff. And they love to be a part of an organization that has a soul and a purpose. I mean, people leave good jobs that come to work for us because they go, my current company they don't have the commitments of me as a team member, of my family, and the community operator. So people come to work for us because they know we stand for something. And especially the younger generation, they want to work for someone that they can be proud of. And it isn't just a paycheck.
There have been so many great pieces of advice and insights that you've shared in the interview. I would ask, what advice specifically would you give to other CEOs that are looking to build a strong company culture?
Well, I alluded to it earlier. Intentionality about culture. Decide what you want. What do you want the culture of your organization to be, and then figure out a way to do it. And if you've got a better way, then go for it. But if you're not sure what to do, then I use that as a guide to say, because for us it just worked out perfect. We created these behaviors, then we taught them and we reinforced them, and it just kind of builds on itself. It's so much better now than it was when we started 10 years ago. We wouldn't even recognize it, but that was the framework: is this intentionality around culture in a definable way. It isn't squishy. It's not vague. Our culture is very serious, very clear, very measurable, very definable, very teachable. And I think that's the difference between, a lot of times it seems squishy. Culture is not squishy at all. It's black and white. It's good and bad. We can define it exactly the way we want it. It is the most important thing I ever did as the president or CEO, is work on the company's culture. There's no question it's the most important thing.
Well, how has shaping this culture impacted you personally? What's the legacy? Let's talk a little bit about legacy that you hope to leave behind.
But to me, the legacy is that we'll keep growing and we'll keep doing great things for the organization, and we will make a difference in the communities that we operate in. People go, that's a great company to work for. They care for the people, and they're a good corporate citizen. They're doing good to the community. So, but this all happened though, when I should have told you the story earlier. When did we decide not to sell it, and kind of what happened. So my brother, we're Catholic. We went to mass one day, just happened to walk into church together at the same time. So we sat together in church. There's a spot in the Catholic church where you stand up and you say the Our Father. So I grabbed my wife's hand, I grabbed my sister-in-law's hand, and she was holding my brother's hand. And the moment I grabbed my sister-in-law's hand, I heard, "Keep the business in the family." It was audible.
Wow.
Yeah, so after church, I'm like, Bill, I got to tell you about this. So we're not selling this company. We're keeping this business in the family. I heard from God today. So, literally, it was at that point, that we are doing God's work. And that is incredibly rewarding as a thoughtful Christian, that we're put on this planet to do something. But I feel strongly that we're running this business, owning this company, and doing what we're doing is what we're put on this earth to do. And there's something pretty cool about that.
I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Divine intervention, such an incredible insight. Is there anything else that you would like to share about running Field or shaping the culture that you haven't got a chance to say yet?
Well, I think the only thing I could add is that now I've got two sons in the business, and it's so much fun to bring them along in this journey, right? Well, Dan's a sales guy, John's an engineer, and to do work side by side and work on customers and opportunities and challenges, and teach them the way of the business, and see them doing great things and being successful, and being having the culture mantle, and they're as committed to the culture and they're as passionate about this business as I ever was. So it's fun to see them kind of knowing that they can take it to the next level with their cousins, and it's exciting to see the next generation of the family kind of taking the lead and knowing we'll be in good shape. So that's been particularly gratifying as a dad, just to see the kids, grown adults now married with kids and stuff, but to see them being husbands, dads, and now members of the family that is going to take this business to the next level is going to be exceedingly gratifying. So family businesses can get some hard, get some bad rep, and there's a lot of it's true, and it's hard. And if you can make it work, it is worth the effort. But it takes a lot of work to make the family business work with harmony with the business and the family. That doesn't happen by accident.
I so appreciate you offering your strategies, things that you've used to foster unity, drive profits, and build resilience at Field. And appreciate so much of your time and sharing your insight with.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you found our conversation with Jim Derry insightful and inspiring. And, we definitely did a deep dive and explored the profound impact of a strong corporate culture and how that impacts not only organizational success, but also personal and professional fulfillment of its employees. And so remember, prioritizing individual growth alongside the business objectives can foster an environment where everyone thrives, and we should all be striving towards that. So if you're interested in enhancing your career, consider exploring the Promotion Accelerator and take the next step on your personal journey. But don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more enlightening discussions and tips on how to advance your career. Please also share with someone you know who needs it. We would love to hear your thoughts and comments about our clips today. So feel free to leave your comments and insights below. Until next time, keep striving for growth and making a positive difference on the world through your work. Thank you so much.